There's several things that big duck clubs do to be successful that they don't want you to know about. One of those things, food. I'm not talking about a ribeye at dinner time. What I'm talking about is corn. Should you plant it? Is there anything any better? Well, I'll tackle those questions and more today. I'm Joel Strickland, and this is Surviving Duck Season. Thanks for watching Surviving Duck Season, where we feed your waterfowl obsession and help you to maximize your experience. Now, for most of my years duck hunting, I've hunted a combination of public areas and private ground. And there's positive and negatives to both. But if you have the right private spot, you can do some amazing things to improve the habitat for waterfowl. There's a lot of hype over planting corn for ducks. Really planting lots of different things for ducks. And on this video, I'm going to talk with you and show you some things that I've done that's worked, and also let you know about the challenges and problems that you might face if you decide you want to do some of that yourself. Now, today's video is brought to you by Mojo Outdoors and High and Dry Waders. Do you ever plant for ducks? Well, if you have, leave me a comment and let me know what you plant and how it works for you. This is going to be longer than my normal video, but there's a ton of really good information and examples that can help you to get some of the ducks that might be hanging out over at the big fancy duck club nearby or at a waterfowl sanctuary. So hang with me. There are some legal things that you really do need to consider when we're talking about planting for wildlife when you intend to hunt. If you plant something for ducks that you do not harvest and that you plan to hunt over, you cannot manipulate that crop. That means you can't mow it, knock it down, drive over it with your ATV, stomp on it with your feet, burn it, or in any way make it easier for the ducks to get to it at any point during that season. Okay? Otherwise, it's considered baiting. You can flood it, but that's it. On the contrast, if you are hunting an agricultural field that has been planted and then harvested, you can knock down the stubble if you want to, you can burn it. And then also if you're in an area that maybe is fallow, that hasn't been planted, the regulation is not the same for that. It's considered naturalized. And so then therefore you can manipulate that. This is federal regulations. So it's, this way in every state. But your state may even be more strict. Do your own homework, do your own investigation, and make sure that what you do, you are legal in doing so. With all that out of the way, let's get into it. So what's the fuss about corn? There's a lot of hunters and big duck clubs that plant corn for ducks. Corn is excellent as a food because it's a high carb food. We call it a hot food source. So when it's cold and ducks need quick energy, they can really pound the corn. Corn is the #2 highest value per acre for the amount of days that a duck can actually feed in a field before they use it up. Well, it's #2 if you don't harvest it. Unharvested rice is #1, but whether it's rice, corn, soybeans, or any other crops that a duck might want to eat, as soon as you harvest it, the percentage of food that's left in a field it's so small compared to what was harvested. A harvested rice field or a harvested corn field, typically, they're trying to get 200 bushels an acre, and then how much is left in a field? Like 2 or 3 bushels an acre. Most of the combines are so efficient these days, there's just not a lot left over. There's been several studies out, to determine, what a duck needs in a flooded field. And so if a duck goes to a flooded rice field, for example, and there's maybe like 2 or 3 bushels per acre that's left over, that is a decent, environment for a duck to thrive. But once it gets down to about 45 pounds per acre of accessible grain, that's when they decide to leave, because it's not worth the energy and the effort for the duck to try to find that amount of food. Well, 45 pounds is about like a bushel, okay? So, they're starting at about 2 or 3 bushels, and once they feed out, about half of that, then they're going to leave the field. Now, for those of you who are kind of nerdy about statistics and information like I am, I'm going to leave some links in the description below, some documents that you can download from the NRCS, Mississippi Wildlife and Parks. Really, really good information. Planting commercial crops for ducks can be great if you're a farmer, or if you can hire a farmer to plant and grow them for you. But let's be honest, doing that is not realistic for most people. But commercial crops do have some downsides. One is, once they're flooded, they deteriorate quicker, meaning late in the season they may be completely unavailable because if there is any left that haven't been fed out, it may be rotted. But there's something that the most successful duck clubs are doing either instead of corn or in addition to corn or rice that I'm going to tell you about. And it can even work on a small piece of ground. These are 3 things that I've been doing for nearly 30 years. Even when I was a kid and didn't have much money, I could do some of these things. They are 1, managing and hunting moist soil habitat, 2, flooding fallow fields, and 3, planting millet. Now, moist soil habitat is a seasonal wetland that grows naturally, native grasses and plants throughout the summer, and then it provides a winter habitat for ducks and other wildlife once it's been flooded. Now, I'm not talking about a swamp. They can turn into a swamp if they're not managed right and the water doesn't come off of them. But moist soil environments slowly dry out, in the summer, and that causes a variety of plants to grow. Wild millets, sprangletop, toothcup, panic grass, smartweed, chufa, lots of other things. A lot of things that we consider weeds, but they are great for wildlife.
This is a natural wild millet. They call it barnyard grass, and this has got a tremendous amount of food value, and there's lots and lots of it, as you can see, growing. This right here is smartweed, which is another favorite duck food, and these flowers here are going to turn to seed pretty soon, and there's lots and lots of it growing out here, and there's tons of other native food sources for ducks, not to mention the abundance of invertebrates and other kinds of little bugs and whatnot that live in this, and mosquito larvae, which is another highly sought after food for a lot of different types of ducks in the wintertime. And so you got just a smorgasbord of food for them to eat. There's a lot of weeds that are not of any food value, but like this is what we call coffee bean, or Cispania is actually what the true name is, but it's coffee bean. And when it grows in large stands, it's a good windbreak. It's a thermal area where ducks can kind of get in out of the wind and get themselves warm. But it also makes, if I can see where we put the blind over there, it's a really good spot to hide a blind. You don't want to let too much of your moist soil grow up in that, and a lot of it's dependent upon when you let the water in and out as to how much of that you have grow. But what we have here is just kind of perfect.
Now, on average, moist soil property that's not even managed properly can have more food available than a harvested crop field. And a well-managed moist soil property can have 10 times or even more the amount of food compared to an ag field, and it will last like the entire duck season, the entire winter, even after duck season is over with and ducks are still hanging out for a while before they fly back north. It's a really, really, really good type of habitat. Now, fallow ground also can be great for ducks too, depending upon what's growing. If it's grasses and those sorts of things, then more than likely, once you have flooded it, the ducks will use it. And likely it's going to have more available food than, like I said, a harvested crop field would have. There's all kinds of really great grasses that grow in that are similar to what grow in moist soil habitat. So we do that quite a bit. Sometimes a farmer will leave a field fallow or doesn't get in there and we don't have time to do something else with it. We'll just flood the field, and a lot of times it works out really, really well for us. I've also planted a lot of Japanese millet and golden millet, and even some brown top millet. Now, these are all great duck foods. They're very easy to plant. I'm in Arkansas, and so we typically will plant these in late July, August, all the way up till about Labor Day. Okay, and don't feel bad about planting as late as Labor Day if if you're in a little bit of a warmer climate, because it will work. Japanese millet is what I started out planting, a little over 25 years ago. In the last probably 10 12 years, I've been planting golden millet, and I love golden millet. It's fantastic. It comes up really, really high. It withstands water a little bit better than Japanese millet does. The head is really, really big. Now, like I said, the millets are all great duck food and very easy to plant. Ideally, you would disc up an area and then broadcast the seed and then drag something behind your tractor or a four-wheeler or something like that to, work some soil over the top. You don't have to really plant it in. You're just really kind of getting a dusting of soil over the top, like a 1/4 inch or even less, just to keep the birds from getting to it, and then also making it a little bit better for when the germination period takes place. But it's not necessary to do that. If you are working with bare dirt or mud, you can just broadcast it right over the top of it and then just wait for the rain. The rain will beat it into the ground. If it's a mud flat, it'll just germinate with the moisture. You can even throw out the seed in just a few inches of water, and then as long as it doesn't get eaten up by something, then when the water recedes and then it reveals it as a mud flat, then it will germinate and then begin growing. I recently watched this video from Virginia Outdoors Unlimited. Thomas does a great job of showing the entire process of hand seeding a pond. I remember doing that stuff a lot when I was about his age. And I'll leave a link in the description section. You should check out his video. It's pretty cool. Now, there's so many places that you can plant millet. I've done it in openings in the woods, along edges of crop fields where I've got permission to do it. I'm going to show you some examples of some things I've done over the years to plant some of my hunting spots. Now, this is in 2007. This particular place had grown up in tall weeds and undesirables. It wasn't being planted, and so I paid the landowner to disc up part of the field. Not the whole 60 acres, just part of it. The coffee beans and some of the other weeds made really great cover to hide in, and so I left plenty of that. Now, that year we planted it up in golden millet. Now, right here I've got this product called Seed Coat, which is a biostimulant. It's a dry powder that we just mix with the seed. This is not something that you have to do, but we do because it helps the seed to kind of start off better. Now, this is a hand seeder, and you can pick one of these up really inexpensively. You can see my buddy here just walking and turning the crank. It spreads the seed out. It works great in areas that you can't take a tractor or your ATV, or if you just don't have those things. Now, this is the next year. We did the same exact thing, except this time we've got this bigger broadcast seeder that we put on the four-wheeler. These work great. It's a lot faster and a whole lot less walking. Now, when you plant in August like we do, there's a lot of times that it's just bone dry and there's no chance of rain in sight. But usually we have the ability to irrigate in some way. I have a 3-inch trash pump with 100 feet of hose. A lot of times though, it's not near enough length, so I bought some poly pipe and then we attach that to the end of the hose. Then we can run the water pretty much anywhere we want to. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of yards. I've been working with Scott Kerr at Cypress Crossing Duck Club for the last 9 years, and we've been utilizing moist soil habitat, flooded fallow fields, and planting millet. Usually we plant smaller areas, but in 2018 we had the opportunity to plant a couple of 80-acre fields in golden millet, and we were very excited about it. And as you can see, it's fantastic looking. I mean, it's one of the most impressive millet stands I've ever seen, to be honest with you. It's really, really nice. The thing that's great about millet is you can top sow it, we can broadcast it on top and not do anything. Any average guy can just sling out a bucket of seed and be able to grow a stand of millet. Obviously, the better, the more of like a farmer you try to do it, the better it's going to work. One thing I have noticed about it is the ducks can find it and eat it out really quickly. So you got to run the geese off, and you got to make sure you get in there and shoot the birds when they're there, so that if they do eat it out, you haven't missed the opportunity. Managing property and a duck club is a lot of work. Check out this video right here and see what I'm talking about. And also, check out this video right here to see one of my favorite duck hunting videos that I've put out, and feed your waterfowl obsession. God bless. I'm Joel Strickland, and I'll see you on the next video.